So Place.tv is the video recording app for gamers, and uniquely, it's also the only video recording app that helps you get better as a player.
Do you want to impact the world and still turn a profit? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Growth Everywhere. This is the show where you'll find real conversations with real entrepreneurs. They'll share everything from their biggest struggle to the exact strategies they use on a daily basis. So if you're ready for a value-packed interview, listen on. Here's your host, Eric Sue.
Before we jump into today's interview, if you guys could leave a review and a rating and also subscribe as well, that would be a huge help to the podcast. So if you actually enjoy the content and you'd like to hear more of it, please support us by leaving us a review and subscribe to the podcast as well. Thanks so much. All right, everybody. Today we have Dennis Fong, who is the CEO of Plays.tv, which is a video sharing gamer community. And I'll let him explain what that is in a second. Dennis has also led other game-related business ventures. He's also known as Thresh in gaming circles. I actually used to follow him in his Quake days. And he was formerly known as a world champion of Doom, Doom 2, Quake, and Quake 2, and was called the Michael Jordan of video games by the Wall Street Journal before turning 23. Dennis, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, why don't you give us a little more background on kind of what your story is and how you got to where you are?
Sure. So I, like any kid, used to play a lot of video games when I was younger. And this is back in kind of the 90s when online gaming really was just starting to get popular. And I didn't realize that was really that good until I started competing in tournaments and realized that I never lost. And built up a name for myself as being the best first-person shooter gamer during those days, and then became, I believe, the first professional gamer, first esports guy back in the 90s. I was sponsored by Microsoft and a bunch of other companies, making six figures, when I was 16. And then I won a Ferrari in a Quake tournament in 1997. And, it was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and pretty much every major news publication. And that's kind of how I kicked off my career. And then kind of around the same time, I realized that I had saved up a lot of money and didn't really know what to do with it. And so I used my winnings and my endorsement money to go start my first company, which was called Gamers.com in 1996, which was like a gaming portal. And, I'm now on to my fifth company.
Got it. Okay, great. And by the way, I forgot. Oh, did you end up selling the Ferrari? What happened with the Ferrari? Because I don't remember you driving it.
I drove it for a little bit. I had it for about 10 years. I actually had it installed in the lobby of my office.
Right. Okay.
This is a cool memento. I didn't really drive it that often. But yeah, it was cool. I had an agent, for a long time after I retired kind of around Quake 3, Quake 4. There weren't a lot of people that, were successful at esports until more recently. So it was me and then my buddy Fatality. And then there was kind of a lull until this whole esports thing kind of blew up around League of Legends.
Got it. Okay. And so when I look at all your business ventures, when I look at Crunchbase, for example, it seems that you've kind of always stayed around gaming. So, what's the story behind that? How do you continue to evolve around that, considering that you're not even playing professionally anymore?
So 4 out of the 5 companies that I've started were in gaming. All 5, though, were related to connecting people, communities, and social. So Gamers.com was a gaming portal. It was the leading games portal as ranked by Nielsen back in the day. We sold that, and then we immediately started a new company called Lithium Technologies, which is the only non-gaming company out of the bunch. It was basically like creating online communities and social for enterprise customers like Dell and Sony and Cisco and eBay and PayPal, etc. That company was acquired recently by Vista Partners for a few $100 million. And then I started another gaming company after that called Xfire, which was the first instant messenger made for gamers. So we invented, if you have a gaming audience, we invented like in-game overlays. We invented like your status messages, being able to see what your friends are playing. Like all of that, all of those features didn't exist before Xfire. and then Viacom MTV bought that for about $100 million in 2006. And then I've started a couple of companies after that, and most recently it's Plays.tv, which is a video recording app for gamers.
This question is probably the most relevant to you because I've never seen anybody go. Besides myself playing a ton of games in the past, but how does one go from gamer to entrepreneur?
So to me, gaming, one thing that gaming did for me personally was it got me into technology and tech in general. Especially back in those days, you really had to learn the ins and outs of networking and technology and IT just to be able to play games with one another.
And the right video card too.
Yeah, you had to upgrade your PC constantly. You had to figure out how to connect. At the time it was like modems. And how to there was just a whole bunch of stuff that you had to learn along the way just to play games.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of number one. Number two, I think the top gamers that I've met, many of whom are my friends, are incredibly competitive, much like athletes. And so I think the competitiveness and the drive and relentless pursuit of winning applies to all facets of life, not just games. And then number three, I think to be the best in anything, really, whether it's a game or sport or anything else, requires, there's some part of your brain, there's some kind of part of your brain that works naturally that gives you, some competitive edge. And for me personally, it's my ability to see things through other people's eyes without having to spend really mental energy to do so. So, I can basically, when I was playing games, I could literally predict what other people were doing before they even realized they wanted to do it. And they had coined a term around that called Thresh ESP. Because it seemed like, they called me the most intelligent player. And so that's just the way my brain naturally works. And so you can apply that to business, whether it's marketing and you're trying to put yourself in the eyes of your users, or business development or partnerships where you're trying to put yourself in the eyes of, your partner. It's a pretty useful skill all around.
Love it. Yeah, I think we can nerd out on gaming all day, but I do want to talk about your newest venture, Plays.tv. So what is Plays.tv, and how do you guys make money?
So Plays.tv it's a video recording app for gamers. And uniquely, it's also the only video recording app that helps you get better as a player. And so not only does it record what you do when you play, but it actually can figure out all your kills, deaths, assists, all of the key moments while you're playing. We basically generate a visual timeline of your match, and then have bookmarks created and highlights created around every key moment. So let's just say you got a triple kill, while playing CS:GO. Instead of having to dig through an hour-long video file, when you come out of the match, it's you can find it in 2 seconds. But more importantly, from a self-improvement perspective, if you die, you screw up, and you're like, oh man, how did I die? What did I do wrong? You can go back and look at that replay and find that moment instantly and watch it instantly from your perspective. And the cool thing is that unlike a traditional replay, which breaks after every match and it doesn't record your actual point of view, meaning what we're recording is the actual video of you playing from your perspective. So you see the fog of war, you can hear the in-game communications, you can see where your mouse was clicking. There's a whole bunch of things there as a gamer where it's fundamentally way more useful than an in-game replay. And so, but really, ultimately, it's kind of, the core of the service is kind of like Instagram for gamers. So it's a social video platform for you to both share cool stuff that you did as well as watch cool stuff that other people are doing.
Got it. And then so, you just mentioned kind of Instagram for gamers, but I was thinking kind of gamer, almost like video kind of analytics, because you guys are zooming into points where key things happen, right? So my question around that point is, you mentioned, okay, first-person shooters, but does this apply to a League of Legends as well? Does it apply to kind of multiple games, or is it just first-person shooters?
Oh yeah, it's all games. So we have everything from League and Dota to Rocket League and Overwatch and Counter Strike. It's pretty broad. It's not actually. I wouldn't think of it as like a coaching or analytics platform. It just happens to be one of the core features of our app that people love.
Great. Okay. And how do you guys make money?
We haven't actually started monetizing it yet, but we plan to introduce premium features. We have millions and millions of people that already use the product and service monthly, and we have creators that have pretty big followings. Right, we have guys that have hundreds of thousands of followers on Blaze TV. And so we want to give them a way to monetize their audience as well. So we're probably going to introduce advertising, video advertising, as well as things like tip jars and donations and that kind of stuff.
Nice. How many millions of users right now?
I think the last number we announced was north of 10.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Let me know when advertising is on. Great. So, I mean, for you guys, I always ask the question to people, how did you go about acquiring, let's say, because you guys already have, 10 million or so. I mean, how did you go about acquiring your first 100,000 users?
We had some unique advantages. Because of my history in the space, it's relatively easy for me to get some people to try it and to get some good PR around it. When what the Wall Street Journal calls the Michael Jordan of video games launches something in video gaming, we're going to get some decent press around it.
Mm-hmm.
I leveraged my network. So a lot of the top pro gaming or esports teams, the owners as well as the players, are friends of mine, people that I've helped mentor or still continue to give advice to, and so. These guys are now the real rock stars of esports and kind of the new generation of stars. And so getting them to try it, and thankfully they all liked it. And once they started using it and sharing clips and tweeting about it, that made the start pretty easy for us.
Got it. Okay. And 5 business ventures that you've had already. I mean, it sounds like your hit rate is 100%, right? I mean, you succeeded at all of them?
So far.
Okay. So that's something I want to come back to later, because that probably comes back to your gaming background. Okay. But so, you talked about kind of leveraging your brand for the first 100,000. People are like, okay, that's great. I probably can't do that. So what is the most effective thing that's working for you in terms of customer acquisition nowadays?
A lot of it, I think, depends on the business and industry that you're in. For us, people, first you have to, the challenge for us was we are ultimately, think of the app as a user-generated content engine, right? People download the app to record themselves playing and doing cool stuff, and then they share that content elsewhere. And so I think where we found also a lot of our early users was on places like Facebook and Twitter and Reddit, where people actually were sharing their own clips, self-promoting. And when those clips blew up, people, they watch it on plays.tv, and then they find out about plays.tv through that. I think for both enterprise and consumer businesses these days, leveraging social channels, which are typically free, is a great place to start.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is kind of, referral marketing and then, kind of word of mouth, right? That works out well for you guys, obviously.
Well, I think historically, at least in all the companies that I've started, the best marketer is always your customer, which means listening to your customer, listening to user feedback, and using every opportunity to build a stronger relationship with your user/customer. Oftentimes actually, and I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize, is sometimes when you screw up really big, it's actually the best opportunity to build a better relationship with your customer.
Interesting.
A lot of people freak out, when something bad happens or you screw up, and a customer suffers for it.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, this happened plenty of times, whether it's at Lithium, which is dealing with enterprise customers, or even at Blaze TV, where, let's just say there's a crash or a server goes down or there's a bug, and they're very upset by it. At least in the Lithium world where we're dealing with enterprise customers, you don't often get to chat with their the senior VP of marketing or the chief marketing officer at like a really big Fortune 500 company. But like, let's just say our servers went down, and it caused a whole bunch of their customers that we were servicing to not to be able to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. They're pissed, and then the CMO or SVP of marketing is pissed, and they call us. And that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, they're going to be pissed off initially, but how you respond to that and how you will follow up and remedy that situation can oftentimes make them actually feel better about you at the end of the day. Otherwise they don't really care about what you're doing that much. You're just a service provider. So Police TV, we have similar things where, we screw up, our service goes down, a user encounters a bug, and they're complaining about us on Twitter, and we actually reach out to them, and we actually talk to them. We have a conversation with them. We find out what's wrong. We fix it, and then we follow up with them afterwards to make sure they're cool. And we basically have flipped someone from being a hater to an advocate, a brand advocate, which is huge. So that's what I mean. There's a lot of opportunities there to convert customers into advocates.
Got it. Yep, makes total sense. And the one question I usually ask people is, tell us about one big struggle you faced while growing, their business. But here's the thing: you've actually had 5 different ventures. So what's the most memorable struggle that you can recall? So you've talked about server issues, things like that. But what's another big struggle that you can, that really sticks out for you?
I think the things that I feel that impact me kind of most at every company that I've started are always people issues. I think in the early days, my first company, I was running a company of 130 employees when I was 21. So CEO of 135 employees, and I had very little clue about what I was doing. So I remember back in those days, the things that would stress me out would be, like a VP or a director or whoever, any employee coming up to me and telling me about their family issues or personal issues and whether we could help them out as a company. Because at the time I was just not mentally equipped to handle, like, I didn't really know how to handle that kind of situation. And then later in the life of my first company, we had to go through layoffs. Were obviously really tough as well. But I would say on a regular basis, almost everything else I can it's pretty easy for me to roll with. But when you're dealing with like people and people issues, whether it's personal, like completely unrelated to the company, but they're part of our family effectively. And struggling to find a way to help them, is super tough, right? Like, as an example, there's someone who's been with the company for a long time, and they have medical bills piling up, but you have to lay them off. What do you do? Those are or like maybe their medical issue, their medical health is impacting their work and has been impacting the work significantly. Do you let them go or not? Those are the kind of things that at least that keep me up at night.
Got it. So, what is your general, I'm sure you have some processes around this now, right? In terms of kind of the order that you follow. So what do you do in this situation now? Let's say I come to you, I say, Dennis, man, I've got issues. I can't work for 2 months. What happens?
I think those typically, that's actually pretty straightforward. I have had folks that I've worked with who have their doctor tells them they have, a year or 2 years to live. They have, issues with, like brain issues or whatever. And it impacts their emotional state. It impacts their physical state, which impacts all the people around them. But if you let them go, they're going to be without health insurance. So what do you do? Their work is suffering. They're impacting negatively the people around them. They can't really help it because it's a health issue. And you want to help them out. So those are the kind of things that are actually difficult, and it's really just a case by case basis.
I'm assuming it sounds from the sound of it sounds like you do actually end up helping them out.
We try. We definitely go. We go above and beyond. Sure, because life is just too short.
Yeah, I think the thing that we can agree on, I talk about this with other entrepreneurs all the time, is just, hiring and having great people is the most important thing, right? It seems like, with 5 other ventures, you agree with that. So, what else what are some other key lessons that you've learned from going through these 5 companies and also being a world champion gamer?
I would say one of the biggest learning experiences that I've had is that. So when I'm competing, so basically the way that I competed as a gamer is not necessarily the best way. You can't apply that competitiveness and ruthlessness to building a company. And I believe that you could early on in my career, and I've learned along the way that you can, right? So compassion is actually more important, so what I mean is I used to just think like, I'm going to drag you over the finish line if I have to. And, if you're struggling to find the right answer, I'll just give you the answer. And what I learned is that people don't grow if you consistently are just giving them the right answer,
because they rely on you.
Yeah, they become reliant. And I think for any business and for any person that works at a company, I think the most valuable thing they can take away from any company and time that they spend there is growth, personal growth. Like, how can they grow, their skills? How can they grow professionally, personally? And that means that you have to let people make mistakes. That means that you have to mentor them and teach them in a compassionate way, not just tell them what to do. You kind of have to let them make mistakes, which takes a lot longer. It takes a lot longer. It's going to take you initially at least 30%, 40% longer for them to get the job done,
especially with salespeople.
Yeah, and you have to let them make those mistakes. But in the long run, A, they're going to be more loyal. B, they're going to be a lot happier. C, they're going to be way more successful for you in the long term. It took 40% longer the first time. The second time, it takes 20% longer. The third time, it's about the same. And then from then on, they're doing things way, way faster and growing as an individual and within your org. Because you're giving them the room to grow.
And it sounds like, when you say compassion, it almost sounds like you got a lot more patient as the years wore on.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning to be more compassionate. If you haven't watched Jeff Wiener's talk from LinkedIn about compassionate management, that was a big inspiration for me. Because it rang very true to my own personal experiences.
Yeah, you know what? One thing I want to know, and that actually rings really true with me, because having a gaming background too, I want to drag people over the finish line, where I just want to kill everything, right? Especially if you're a first person shooter or first person gamer. But the other thing that I'm wondering too, because it seems that you seem to succeed with everything that you touch, how do you generally structure your day, and kind of what habits propel you forward?
Well, in general, I'm an early riser, so I try to get a lot of stuff done early in the morning. Before
what time is that?
I'll wake up probably around 6. But I think in general, I try to get a lot of stuff done in the morning, and this for me personally, I feel like I think I have a tendency to, I would say I hate like the small details. Like, just personally, it's like the one thing I just can't stand. And if they pile up this is what I've just found. If I let them pile up too much, I never get around to them. And so, like, as a habit, I try to get the little stuff done sooner. So I don't get to that point, but that's just my own personal thing. Like, I hate getting into the minutia of things.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. You get a lot of stuff done in the morning. You don't like dealing with the minutia, maybe the little details. What else do you do as well? Because I always ask other people, like, well, what else do you journal? Do you meditate? Like, do you eat some crazy diet? Like, what else makes you? What are some cheat codes or hacks that you have?
To be honest, I don't know if I have any. I try to stay in shape, which helps you keep mentally. I think it's not just physical; it's mental. I think having some semblance of work-life balance is pretty important.
Do you really believe that, though, coming from a gaming background?
Well, gaming. So it's funny because gaming is, to me, it's part of my release. So. Just because I work in gaming, like people think that when you have a gaming related company that it's so awesome because all you do is play games all day.
Yeah, that's
which is furthest from the truth. But I still love playing games. I'm still very competitive. The games that I play, I'm still incredibly competitive. It's just built. It's ingrained in me, right? So like a game that I play is Clash Royale, ranked top 100 globally in that game. Like it's just like any game that I play, I play very seriously.
I feel you. Cool. All right, a couple more questions. We're working towards wrapping up here. What's one new tool that you've added in the last year that's added a lot of value for you? So, for example, could be Evernote.
There's one that I think we're still seeing the benefits from it. It's basically, it's a tool called Small Improvements, which is what we use at the company to manage. It's kind of like I don't know how to best describe it. It's just a way to like do one-on-ones and set goals and objectives and stuff for people within the company. I don't even think the tool necessarily is the best tool out of that class of tools. But it's the first time I've adopted one of these tools over the past 7-8 years, and I'm finding it to be a super awesome and easy way to kind of help structure like the one-on-one meetings and help drive this compassionate management and growth that I spoke about earlier.
You know what's funny? So we use 15.5. That's another one of those tools. But it's basically like when you look at it, you have a dashboard and it's managing the whole process. This in itself becomes a game, right? So everything is gamified. Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. Like just having a little bit of structure there, I think is really helpful for both the managers and employees and team members. Again, we're still like learning how to best use it, but I'm a big fan of at least these types of tools, which are really inexpensive. Get a lot of mileage out of it.
Totally agree. Yeah, I mean, there's the one-on-ones, the OKRs, all that kind of stuff. So I'll take a look at this, but we use ours. I'll probably drive my ops guy crazy if I add another tool.
No, that's what I said. There's a whole bunch that are all very similar. I'm not saying this one's the best one. It just happened to be the one that we decided to try first, and we just stuck with it.
What's one must-read book that you'd recommend to everyone?
Business related?
Could be business. could be fiction.
Well, I mean, the one that I read pretty recently, over the past few years, is *Sapiens*. *Sapiens* was awesome. I thought it was just fundamentally, you learn so much about human history. And kind of even like the politics and the situation that we're in today from it. I thought that was really good. And then the other one that there's one that actually changed my life, believe it or not. It's going to sound weird. So because I used to play games all day, or very often, especially when I was a pro gamer, I was afflicted with carpal tunnel pretty bad for most of my adult life.
Can you explain what that is again? Because like as a gamer, like I've always wondered about that, but I've never gotten it. So what is that again? Just for everyone to.
It's repetitive stress injury, right? So you basically like if our bodies were not made to sit in the computer desk all day staring at a monitor, hunched over, and using the mouse and keyboard 12 hours a day. And so I got repetitive stress injury, which kind of became carpal tunnel, where it became painful just to move my wrists, basically, and the pain would shoot all the way up to my shoulders.
Huh.
And I had this basically since that was one of the reasons why I retired as a gamer, and then I've had it basically all the way since I was, call it 18. I'm 40 now, so and I've tried everything. I've tried acupuncture, massages multiple times a week. Like it impacted my neck and shoulders and back and stuff as well. And anyway, so to cut a long story short, I had this whole thing. I tried everything, nothing worked. And then I read this book called The Mind Body Prescription. It's going to sound really hokey because I'm like the last person to believe in something like this. But basically, I'll give you like the 1 second, like the 1 minute synopsis, which is that your mind and body. The premise of the book is that your mind and body are actually connected, and that a lot of repetitive stress injuries, whether it's like neck pain, body pain, etc., are actually a manifestation of some internal strife. Yeah. It was like we all have internal stuff, that drive. Some of this stuff drives us, right? And the idea behind it was that there's a whole part of your system of your body that's autonomous, like your immune system, like blushing. Like you can't make yourself blush on purpose. So what is blushing? Like your body's reacting to some emotional state of yours, right? And at a high level, people understand like when you're super stressed, your back might get tight or your neck might get tight. You go get a massage or you go do yoga. So there's like some elements of that already. But he basically like put it more into like scientific form and a way to try to expel this emotional energy or whatever out of your body. I know it sounds crazy, but I basically read this book and I thought it was the most hokey thing. It takes like, I don't know, a week to read it. It's really, really short. And I read it, and literally a week later, I did not have carpal tunnel or any repetitive stress injury.
That's crazy. We'll put that in the show notes.
It blew my mind. It literally blew my mind. It's called The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno.
I'm going to Amazon one-click that.
I tell everybody about it because anyone that actually knows me knows I'd be the last person to believe any kind of hokey thing like this. But like you read the book and you just follow, it's kind of like having a psychotherapist basically. And it totally worked. And I've introduced it to a bunch of people and it totally worked for them too. So,
all right. Wait, what is it? I'm going to put in my search bar right now. Mind Body
Prescription. All
right. I'm literally going to buy it right after. So I guess there's a follow-up question to that. I mean, where did you learn about this book? There's got to be a place that you go to learn about, these...
Yeah, I was Googling it because, I mean, literally, so there was a period of like, I don't know, I want to say 5 years where I barely played any games. And the reason I barely played games was because I was in too much pain. And so, but I would still do it. But imagine this, I would not play games for call it 9 months. I'd play one game of League of Legends for an hour, and I'd have like raging pain down my forearms for the next month. It didn't make sense to me. I was like, well, what the F, right? So I started, again, I tried everything, acupuncture, acupressure, whatever. And I started Googling stuff and reading blogs, and I think it was like the CEO of NetApp had a blog where he wrote about this book, and he similarly was afflicted with this, and he came across this book. He realized it was in times of stress that he had massive carpal tunnel. He came across this book, he read it, and then it changed his life. So I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna try it too.
That's hilarious.
And I mean, I swear to God, it worked for me. So I mean, today I have zero pain. Like it's amazing.
Love it. Cool, man. Well, I think that's going to be life-changing for everyone. If there's one thing to do from this podcast, just get that book. But Dennis, this has been great. What's the best way for people to find you online?
You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm just at Thresh, THRESH on Twitter.
That's it? Nothing else? No email?
I mean, if they want to email me, they can email me at dennis@plays.tv.
All right. Cool. Dennis, thanks so much for doing this.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Growth Everywhere. If you loved what you heard, be sure to head back to growtheverywhere.com for today's show notes and a ton of additional resources. But before you go, hit the subscribe button to avoid missing out on next week's value-packed interview. Enjoy the rest of your week, and remember to take action and continue growing.